The Bed Wars Stats Overlay, a blessing and a curse. A mod that allows you to check the stats of every single player in your game, or whether they're a sniper or not. This mod can be used in many ways, including Q dodging based on the stats you see of the players in your game, avoiding snipers, or targeting or sniping people as well. In today's video, we're going to be looking at whether or not the Bed Wars Stats Overlay is bannable on Hypixel. To find out whether the Bed Wars Stats Overlay is bannable, we're going to be looking at the Allowed Modifications guide on the Hypixel forums. Hypixel states that for an allowed modification, it needs to fit within these general guidelines. Firstly, a client performance improvement modification that improves the FPS of Minecraft. Obviously, the overlay does not fall into this category since it does not impact the FPS of your Minecraft. Secondly, aesthetic modifications. Modifications which change the look and feel of the game, such as shaders. The Bed Wars Stats Overlay does not fall into this category because it does not change the look of your game. Brightness and gamma adjustment modifications. This is something like full bright, which will allow you to see areas that would normally be too dark to see in. And the final category, and the one which we are going to try and find out whether the overlay falls into, is a cosmetic HUD modification. Modifications that alter the look and feel of the game of the in-game head-up display, without adding extra information which would normally be unavailable to the player. For example, HUDs adding armor and status effect which are available to the player in their inventory screen are permitted, while minimaps, other player health, armor indicators, play distance, range are not. So obviously, when you look at this, Hypixel states that if a modification does not fit clearly into these allowed modification categories, it should be assumed to be disallowed. So obviously, it will seem like the overlay is not allowed since it does not fall evenly into any of these categories. And in the HUD modification section, it specifically states that the something that would allow you to see plays, stuff like that, would not be allowed. That would normally be unavailable to the player. However, this isn't the end of the story. As we know, there are mods that technically would be disallowed, however, people openly use these mods and Hypixel does not enforce this. For example, for disallowed modifications, any modification that can automate things like that, such as auto sprint, is technically bannable. However, you can see many people using toggle sprint, which is generally auto sprint, without getting banned. So Hypixel, while they say they're allowed modifications and they're disallowed modifications, there is a bit of a grey area where, while it is considered to be disallowed, Hypixel is not going to enforce it, such as toggle sprint. Levelhead is another one of these mods. While it does allow you to sort of get an idea of how skilled the player is, Hypixel doesn't ban for it, since it's a very minor advantage, and something that, for example, you'd be able to search their stats up on a website such as Plank, and be able to find it out. The overlay or the levelhead in the situation just makes this process a bit easier. So this is where it gets interesting. The overlay does not directly give you access to information that would not be accessible to you in any other way. For example, you could search the stats of each player on Plank and basically get the same thing as overlay. The only advantage of using overlay is that you do not need to take the time, and it's a bit of a quicker and easier process. So technically, Plank, it's just speeding up the process of searching up people's stats. Plank itself, there's nothing Hypixel can do about that since it's an external website, and generally people wouldn't really search people's stats up on Plank, each person in your game, since it's a bit of a long process. So already we can see that the Bed Wars Stats Overlay falls into this sort of use at your own risk grey area, where the mod isn't technically allowed, however, it's not giving you that major of an advantage, such as other mods which are technically not allowed, but Hypixel doesn't enforce the ban on them. So the final verdict is, obviously Hypixel is not going to make a statement on these types of mods, since obviously there's too many mods to cover. However, Hypixel it is technically bannable, but at the same time, it's one of the mods that's not that much of an advantage. So if you're using the Bedwars Stats overlay, you shouldn't be worried since there's no way you're actually going to get banned from it since it's an external overlay. However, I would be cautious if you're going to use it in a video since obviously, in case it's bannable, you could get banned for that. So for the second part of this video, we're going to be talking about how the Bedwars Stats overlay worked. I've talked to multiple people who are involved in the development of these overlays to get the full picture on how these work. So obviously, another side-on feature to a lot of these overlays is anti-snipe, which I will go into how it works later on. So firstly, the Bedwars Stats overlays go and access information from the Hypixel API, which is what all these websites such as Skier Club and Plank use, to find out the stats of all the players in your game, and then there's display to you on the overlay. So that's quite a simple process. It's nothing major to that. It just gets all the stats of the players in your game through the means, same way Plank gets it, and displays it to you. Obviously, as we know, the more interesting part of these overlays is the anti-snipe feature, and I've spoken to a lot of people about how this works, and basically these Bedwars Stats overlays have around 15-20ish bots, just Hypixel bots that go around and queue games and stay in the game for around 10 seconds, and then they leave the game. So the reason these bots do this is to analyze patterns of people queuing games. So what they do is they eventually gather thousands of players and information about how they queue games, and this way they can determine the patterns snipers use to snipe people and how normal people queue games. This is why when you look on the overlay, some people are flagged as a sniper because their queuing patterns are determined to resemble that of a sniper. For example, if you queue dodge it a lot, like for example you just queue games and then you leave and queue another game, this is similar to how a sniper would act. So you would be flagged as a sniper on these overlays, and you can try it for yourself and you will be flagged as a sniper. Obviously, on some overlays there's some grey areas where they say they're not sure if you're a sniper, but they could be, and this is where your queuing patterns, stuff like that, just a whole range. So obviously, the anti-snipe is a pretty useful feature of these overlays, and one of the main reasons it should be used. Obviously, knowing people's stats in your game is a bit of an unfair advantage in a way, since obviously you know who to target, you know when to queue dodge. It makes stuff like that much easier, getting win streak, things like that. However, there is level head and stuff like that, so even if this was not allowed, there are still so many of these modifications that can help you assist you in finding out who to target and stuff like that. However, this overlay gives you such detailed information such as their star, their FKDR, win-loss ratio, stuff like that, and that makes it quite a useful tool in games. However, it can be unfair to other people in your game. For example, if you don't have MVP++, then you won't be able to nick in game, and then sorry, I'm just getting this. Then, if you're high star, the people who use this overlay will know how many stars you are, and then, well, firstly, they'll probably target you, and secondly, there's a lot of these annoying people who just go and chat and say, nice 500 star, nice 700 star. So when I was unnicked, when I didn't have plus, I had this happen a lot, where a lot of people would just expose the fact that I'm a Ruby Prestige, or now I'm a 700 star, so that's even worse. So that's one really annoying side effect of these overlays. If you have plus, it's not sparing you completely, since a lot of people will be able to find your nick. Now nicks are pretty obvious, and you can message the nick, and if it shows up something like this player doesn't exist, you'll know it's a nick. However, obviously you're not going to message everyone in your game, and if you only message people who are a suspicious nick. For example, one type of people this could hurt a lot are YouTubers. Since YouTubers can have custom nicks, people don't tend to detect them using your normal methods. However, using this overlay will allow you to detect YouTubers. So YouTubers nicking is much harder now, and obviously since YouTubers can do custom nicks, you can differentiate between a auto-generated nick and a YouTuber nick. So this makes it much harder for them. So there are a lot of inconveniences to people using this overlay. However, there are some positive effects. For example, it is sort of negating against the harmful impact of snipers in the community. However, I will leave it to you now. Comment down below on whether you support the use of the overlay, what do you think about it, and whether you think it should be bannable. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a good day, and goodbye.